Yo, what's up? I'm Coach Rich Thurman, also known as Coach RT3, and today we're going to talk about a couple of things that you can do for your wrist if you do a lot of ground-based movements like animal flow, push-ups, and things like that. Before we get started, make sure you smash the subscribe button so you never miss a post from me again. Oftentimes, when people are doing ground-based movements, the wrist requires a great degree of extension. What is extension? It's the ability for the wrist to do this motion here. So if your wrist is unable to move into this motion, into this position here, and you're lacking a degree of extension, you might feel a little bit of stress on the front side or even on the back side of the joint here. So when you get into this position here where the demands require for the shoulder to move forward over the wrist, you may feel some tension back here on the back side of the wrist. Now, this is typically a mobility issue because we haven't put ourselves into that position. We can assess that typically by just taking our hand into that position on our own and then seeing how much range do we have. Now, if I take my hand and I go, okay, I've got that much range of motion if I push my arm into that, or if I push my hand into that position, and then I do it actively and I end up here, that shows me that I have a lack of active range of motion. So I can't control that range of motion. I can't get myself there. So what we're going to do, very simple input that we can do to start training that. One, we can move into that position. Since we lack the range of motion, or we lack control of the range of motion, what we can do is we can just try and find a way to strengthen that end range of motion. So I'm going to take myself into the stretch of this tissue here. I'm going to contract this stuff on the front side of my joint. Okay, so I'm contracting that stuff, trying to pull my wrist off or pull my hand off the ground, and then I'm just going to move back and try to capture that space and control that space and range of motion. So that's one way I can start to try and capture that space that I know I have passively, but I'm just unable to activate this stuff on the front side to control. Now let's say that I can't even move myself into that range of motion. Like I push my hand here and I can't even seem to go any further. Well, what I can do then is I can start to stretch that tissue a little bit more. So I want to stretch this front side of my tissue a little bit more, spend some time stretching that, and then I want to put a strength input into it. So I might do pails and rails here. So I'll take myself into that position. I'm going to stretch this tissue on the back side of the joint. And then after 2 minutes of stretching that tissue there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to drive down on the floor like I'm trying to do this motion here. I'm trying to press down into the floor. So I'm using this stuff on the front side of my joint to try and drive down into the floor. And then my rails contraction is going to be trying to pull back towards me. So trying to pull this wrist back and towards me. Okay, so I'm pulling back towards me. That's my rails contraction. All right, so that's going to give us an opportunity to try and not only stretch and open up that space, but then train that tissue utilizing an isometric. Those are a couple of ways you can think about training the wrist, especially if you do a lot of ground-based movement where you need to be down here on the floor and you just feel like you're kind of restricted there in that joint and don't have the range of motion that you want. Now we want to pay particular attention and that there's no pain on the front side of this joint. So as we're moving into this position, we want to make sure that there's no pain there. If there's pain symptoms there, I suggest you go find a professional that can help you work your way through that, a physical therapist, chiropractor, or someone of that sort. If you found this video useful, be sure to share it with a friend. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel so you never miss a post from me again.